Miami at Georgia Tech. And you'll notice in the lower thirds, there will not be any rankings next to the teams' names. Obviously, we don't know where these teams are ranked right now. So Miami clearly will be in the top 10 somewhere, but we don't know where, and we'll find out later on in the show. So if you're wondering where the numbers are next to team names, it's because we're doing the show before the playoff rankings are announced. So we don't actually know where these teams are ranked. But let's get into this game between Miami and Georgia Tech. And really the storyline to me, Dawn, is the status of Haynes King, Georgia Tech's starting quarterback, because Georgia Tech lost their last two games to Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. And it's really no coincidence that in those two losses, Haynes King was out because of an injury to his throwing shoulder. Now, Brent Key said this week the redshirt junior is day-to-day, and he's hopeful that he can return this week against Miami. But he also said he cannot say whether or not he's probable to play against Miami. So this is truly up in the air whether or not Haynes King will be playing against Miami. And obviously, their chances of pulling off a massive upset really hinge on whether or not Haynes King is able to go. He's probably the best player on the entire team for Georgia Tech. And even last year, in that amazing game between these two schools, and Miami could have knelt the ball, won the game. They fumbled it, and the Haynes King threw a game-winning touchdown with like 10 seconds left or whatever. They really need Haynes King to have any sort of chance of beating Miami.
Yeah, I agree. I think without King, I don't believe they can win this game. It's clear at this point, even with some flaws that Miami has on defense, that you need to be able to put up 40-plus points to play with and to beat Miami. I thought even last week's Miami win over Duke was so impressive because Duke had arguably the best secondary in the conference, and they still found a way to score 53 points on them. So I think if you're not fully loaded on offense, you have no chance right now to keep up with Cam Ward and this Miami offense.
Yeah, he says, Williams actually in the chat says, if Haynes King plays, they will pull off the upset, or they can pull off the upset. So
it's at least possible with him in there. I honestly don't believe that it is without him.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dalton, you actually have the Yellow Jackets offense. So with or without Haynes King, what should we be looking out for when they have the ball?
So I have to make the assumption that it is with, because their backup, Zach Pyron, has a 48.4 career passing grade, and he's really just a runner who can do some of the things, but you have to be two-dimensional. You have to be high-flying to beat this Miami team. But you can do that because Miami's secondary really has struggled of late, right? If you look at their numbers since week 4, that's actually the USF game and then all of their ACC games, it's been a struggle for them. They're 107th in coverage grade. They're 70th in EPA per pass allowed. And I think a big thing in this game is you're trying to stop two things from Georgia Tech, okay? Obviously, we've talked all year about Georgia Tech and their play-action game and the deep shots you can take off of that, right? Miami in that stretch is 36 against play-action, but it's still... It's dangerous with a team that's so good at it, a team that really is effective at creating deep shots off of their run game, right? And obviously, Georgia Tech wants to run the ball. They want to run a quick pace. They want to run their option stuff. They want to wear out this front four. But it's wearing out the front four with the intent of then getting into this secondary from clean pockets when this Miami pass rush can't get to you. The other thing I want to mention is I think Miami, more so than struggling to contain deep shots, because a lot of teams don't have time to take deep shots when you're talking about Ruben Bain and their defensive line getting after him in the pass rushes. Miami's really struggled, I think, with open field tackling, with defending screens, with playing out in space, right? So if I take that same stretch of time since week 4, they're actually 104th in the country in coverage grade against screens, and Georgia Tech runs as many screens as just about anybody in the country. I think they're in the top 15 of total screens run, and no Power 5 receiver has more yards on screens than Malik Rutherford, right? So I think there's a couple of things here in Georgia Tech's passing game. If Haynes King is healthy, you have Eric Singleton on deep shots, you have Malik Rutherford on screens, and obviously you have the run game, and they want to run it with some pace to wear out Miami's defensive line, right? So I think there is a road, if King is something close to 100%, where Georgia Tech can put up points in this game, and they're going to need to put up at least 40 points in this game to keep up. But there is some room in their passing game, and I think Miami's secondary has shown us they're clearly the biggest weakness on this team right now. They score a boatload of points. We know their front four is great. They're pretty darn good at stopping the run with them and their linebackers for that matter. But are they going to get better in coverage down the stretch here and not maybe take a chance on, okay, if Cam Ward has a bad day and we're still giving up a lot of yards in the passing game, that's when you start talking about, okay, maybe we're giving up enough points or we could blow a game here down the stretch. Georgia Tech's offense, if King is healthy, is really dangerous. They can make big plays. They're dangerous in the screen game when they get lateral and they get their athletes into space. I think they can cause problems as long as Haynes King is healthy enough to go in this game.
Absolutely. And not only do you need him out there, but like you said, the injury is to his throwing shoulder, right? So that can affect him as a passer as well. So not only do you need him out there, you need him at least close to 100% where he can make those throws against Miami's vulnerable secondary. My matchup to watch is the other side of the ball. Really the same thing is kind of, can Georgia Tech do anything to speed up Cam Ward? Cam Ward right now is the current betting favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, and I think he's the most poised and comfortable quarterback in college football right now. It's really difficult for defenses to rattle him, it seems like, and he's almost nonchalantly is throwing for 350 yards a game so far this season. That's especially true if defenses don't do anything to speed him up, because he'll simply take his time in the pocket if he's given the opportunity. But when you force him to get rid of the ball quickly, he's still a really good quarterback, but he's not the elite quarterback that we've seen. So if you look at these numbers right here, under 2.5 seconds on time to throw, he's 22nd in passing grade so far this year. When it's over 2.5 seconds, he's the third best passing grade in the country. When he's under pressure, 31st best passing grade in the country. When he's not pressured, the fourth best passing grade in America. When he's blitzed, 15th in the country. When he's not blitzed, 4th in the country. There is a clear demarcation here where Cam Ward, if you give him time back there, he will pick you apart. But when you don't, he's more of a good, not elite quarterback, honestly. So that's what Georgia Tech has to do in this game. But here's the problem, Dalton. Georgia Tech right now has the 8th worst pass rushing grade in all of college football at a 60.2 mark. And not only that, they don't really help out their pass rush because they only blitz at the 78th highest rate in America at 33.6%. So really like 1 out of every 3 passing plays, they're sending a blitz. And they've only generated pressure on 28% of dropbacks, 99th in college football. And really, some has to do with talent, but also the scheme doesn't help them at all because they run a 3-3-5 defense. Obviously, it does not help with the pass rush. There's only 3 defensive linemen on the field on most plays. So the scheme doesn't really help with the pass rush. They don't blitz that much either. And then also, like, if you do want to send more, their secondary is 94th in coverage grade this year. So this defense, to me, is in a world of trouble against a quarterback like Cam Ward that you need to speed up. But if they do that and they send more guys to go after him, their secondary is already struggling this year. If you take fewer defensive backs off the field, it's going to really be advantageous for Miami, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is Georgia Tech is built to run and stop the run. And when they can get into those types of games, those physical, slower games, I mean, I know they play at a fast pace on offense, but they want to control the clock still and control the pace of the game. I mean, I think we saw in an earlier game this year against Syracuse when Kyle McCord just tore their secondary to shreds that this is a real issue. If they don't control the clock and they can't dictate the pace of the game, they are not good enough in pass defense to just drop back and stop a team like Miami and a quarterback like Cam Ward, especially when he has so much time to work with. So it does all go together, and honestly, I think Georgia Tech, one way or the other, it's going to be hard for them to win a game like this relying solely on their defense. They're going to have to score a lot of points and get just enough stops, because I think to your point about Cam Ward and all those stats you mentioned, it's not about shutting him down. You're not going to shut him down.
Not.
It's about making him normal. It's about, instead of him going for 450 and 5 touchdowns, can you hold him to 250 and 2? Because it's just about giving yourself a chance. And I think regardless, at bare minimum, you would have to score at least 35 points to beat this Miami team.
Absolutely. So, Dalton, ultimately, will Georgia Tech pull off the massive upset at home, or will Miami continue their undefeated season?
I just don't see how they're going to make enough stops, honestly. Cam Ward is just raging hot right now. We just saw him score 53 points on what might be the best secondary in the ACC in Duke, and Manny Diaz, and they're as well coached a defense as there is in the conference. They just don't make enough stops. I could see them getting in a shootout for a while, 2.5, 3 quarters, and really competing, especially if Haynes King looks good. But I've got Miami 45-28. We've seen other good defenses stand no chance against Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo in this offense, and I'm not sure really, unless they find a way somehow to control some crazy amount of time of possession and actually slow the game down, I think Georgia Tech loses a high-scoring game.
Yeah, I got Miami winning this one as well, 40-21. I mean, they got a struggling secondary, almost a non-existent pass rush. I think Cam Ward will pick Georgia Tech apart in this game, and with Haynes King, his status in question, even if he is out there, how capable will he be as a passer with that injury to his throwing throwing shoulder. I just don't think Georgia Tech has enough to win in a shootout, which I think they'll have to in this game. I don't think there's any way this is a low-scoring game. Miami's been scoring 40 on pretty much everyone this year. And against a pass defense like Georgia Tech has really struggled this year, both pass rush and coverage. I don't think it's a good matchup at all for Georgia Tech. So I got Miami winning this one 40-21. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.